Did you know there are differences between men and women? Then you know there are similarities too, right? Then if there are so many similarities, why do men and women have issues understanding each other when it comes to leadership? And why is it many women hold themselves back from stepping up and shining when many men don't have a problem doing that? Our guest expert, award-winning entrepreneur, Roe Couture DeSaro, is going to answer all of that and more. She'll reveal the shocking truth behind the glass ceiling concept, how female leaders can step into their own power even in a predominantly male environment, and how male leaders can empower women to create a unified team. Because when you harness the power between the masculine and the feminine energy, watch out, because that's when you become an unstoppable leader. Before we get started, if you want to learn strategies to help you become the gutsy leader you're meant to be, hit the subscribe button and bell icon now so you never miss an episode. Welcome to Adventures in Leadership on Kristie TV. This is where high achievers go for the tools, confidence, and motivation to become a successful leader. Let's do this. Roe Couture DeSaro is a TEDx speaker, a 4-time best-selling author, a coach, and facilitator of courageous conversations that move the needle. And after she broke several glass ceilings for a high-ranking Wall Street firm and led stockbrokers to sell $100 million of an innovative product, she founded Gutsy Gals Get More. Her programs help women up-level their mindset, unleash their brilliance, and step into their power so they can make a difference while earning wild money. I love Roe's mental toughness and resiliency because that's how she got to be where she is right now. And if you've been lacking that a little bit lately, that's okay. Listen to Roe's advice around courage and how not to play small. It's a game changer.
All right. I am excited to have my really good friend Roe here. You are going to learn a lot. As you just heard, she is a woman of many talents. And Roe, thanks for being here. How you doing?
I'm doing great today, and I'm just thanking that you invited me here today.
All right. Yeah, I think people are going to learn a lot from you. That's exactly why I invited you here. So let's get right into it. For the people that listen to what you're all about, I'm sure there's lots of things that we can learn about Roe, but tell us just maybe a couple little more things about you that we might not know.
So you heard about my background, but I've been this woman that grew up from a very young age feeling that women are great and that a woman can do what a man can do. And that's what propelled me at such a young age to go to Wall Street and just prove it, that a woman can do what a man can do in corporate America, in the business world. And this is in the late 70s, and I chucked the idea of finding a husband. And I created this intention that I'm going to have my career first and have my children later in life, which back then in the 70s did not exist. And it makes me realize that I've paved the way. And then I also realized that my husband's support, he helped pave the way as well, because he always supported me. And then I had 2 children. I actually said to God, I said, I want a boy and a girl. I want a girl so I could raise a powerful girl. And I want a boy so I could have at least one respectful man in this world.
Okay. Fair
I
enough.
mean, this was my 18-year-old thought.
Right.
And today, my daughter at 27 runs her own nonprofit organization. She's the CEO and founder, has a sanctuary for women and children and animals. And my son is an aerospace engineer about to graduate college, because obviously I had my kids now late in life to do that. And so I always say that my kids, they control the universe. She's doing it on the spiritual side, and he's doing it on the aerospace side.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? So even though
No.
you set that intention back when you were 18, there you go. So everybody out there who thinks that they have silly goals or whatever back when they were younger, well, look at what Roe did. She set the intention, made it happen.
I mean, obviously it didn't pan out exactly, straight up the line, but there were a lot of truths to it that showed up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I would love for you to go into, that was a really cool segue. I would love for you to go into what was it like being on Wall Street and a woman, right? So obviously you were surrounded by mostly men, and
Mhm.
probably depending on the time frame and all that, there's probably more men than women at that time on Wall Street. So take me through that journey just real quickly of what that felt like, and what did you feel you needed to prove something, or how did you handle that? And I ask that because there's probably a lot of women out there that are, in a mostly men industry, right? But I think
Absolutely.
there's awesome ways of handling it, and maybe there are maybe not so productive ways of handling it. So how did you do it?
So, you're exactly right. And I was the only woman in my area. And matter of fact, I broke several glass ceilings. I became the first female in certain positions growing up in that industry. And one of the things was that when I look back, because I could, to be honest with you, while I was doing it, I wasn't realize what I was doing.
Okay.
I was just being I'm on this movement. I have this mission. So I was so focused, and
Okay.
it wasn't about me. So I didn't worry about how I showed up and what I was bringing to the table. I really literally didn't say, hey, men are this, women are that at that time. I was like, no, I'm just here to show you that I can do what you can do. And I'm going to show you that I can do what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But there were certain things that I did not like, and I refused. I said, well, if I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do it my way. Why should I have to do it somebody else's way? And the women at that time were dressing like men. They had these scarves, and I love clothes, as you can see. I'm a very feminine woman from that perspective. And and I was like, I'm not going to dress like a man. I'm not going to act like a man, because if I'm going to prove that a woman can do this, I'm going to prove that a woman can do it as a woman. So from the very get-go, I was being a woman. I wasn't being a woman trying to be a man. That is, and this to this day and age, I think that's one of the major problems that I see with women is that they try to fit into this box and
Okay.
this masculine success system that we inherited. We didn't want it. We inherited it. And they try to adapt. And what I was doing was I was being authentic. I was being authentic before the word was in existence, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
became a word.
Yeah.
And when I realized when I got back, that's basically what I was doing. And it still fits for today that we need to, know who you are. You need to be solid on your confidence and knowing where you're going so that no one can shake you up. So when some man came and said something to me, I didn't get shaken up. Back then, this was actually before sexual harassment. I got respected because if a man came on to me like, sexually, and I was like, you couldn't handle me kind of response. And kids say these things today, but
Right. Right.
but but it was the attitude.
Sure.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was that you don't have that right to talk to me like that. I can talk to you back the same way. But today I would do it obviously with kindness and compassion.
Right.
But but it's the idea is that I didn't fold into their mold because of how they were trying to treat me or put me into a box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what happened was I've seen this over and over again when I was a bodybuilder, when even today's day and age, men love to work with women, and once they respect you, they open up their heart and soul to you.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, their perception of women back then was that women are weak, women are going to complain, they're angry, and I don't want to work with an angry person.
Right. Yeah.
So today it's going to be a little bit different, but today it's going to be their perception is that women don't stand up for what they believe in. Women don't, they back down quickly. So, but once they see that you are a woman that is firm, that
Mm-hmm.
does stand up and stand in her shoes and know what she believes in and what she wants, then they're like, oh, she's an equal. I like her
Right.
because physically they want to be with women. I mean, they
Right.
want to, it's an enjoyment to be with both men and women. The same
Sure.
thing with women.
Yeah.
But I found that once you gain the respect, they change.
Hmm.
They open up. They change their perception.
You said something interesting about and obviously, right, we're not talking about all women or all men think this way, right? But from
Exactly.
this is your experience, right? So
Right.
we're honing on what Roe has gone through. And you said something pretty interesting about men will respect women who know what they want and stand in their power and things like that. But take me through a little bit of thought process of maybe what you think is the difference between masculine and feminine, because sometimes, and this is like my jam where I study behaviors and personalities, right? Because between a man and a woman, some can be very quiet and docile. They might know what they want, but they have a different way of going through it. And then another perspective is drive hard and, do the thing.
Right.
But take me kind of through what your experience has been, because some women might know what they want, but maybe they don't want to be the rah, like they don't want to throw it in the face. So what would you say to a woman who's kind of balancing, like, what do I do, and the differences and things like that?
Yeah, and exactly. And there is this paradox that we have, that we feel that if I'm going to be successful in this masculine culture, if I'm going to be successful, I have to give up my feminine side. Because if they see my feminine side, they're going to see me as weak. They're
Right.
going to see me as not capable. And
Hmm.
that's actually our own perception. And then the other side of the paradox is, well, if I do show up in my feminine, then I'm probably not going to get that promotion.
Yeah.
And I'm probably not going to go as far as I'm capable of going. So that's what the world we do live in. And what I do, like, what realize is that it's really our perception of understanding that showing up in the feminine is showing up in our confidence, is being confident and
Hmm.
stepping into who we are and knowing who we are and knowing what we stand for, knowing knowing what's authentic, and kind of like what Steve Jobs would say all the time,
Yeah.
right? And it's when you're in that presence, everybody else could feel it, everybody else could see it, and
Yeah.
it's just walking in with this air of confidence. And
Hmm.
then so this way, women are gatherers. We don't, like, here's the problem. Say you're in a meeting and men want bottom line immediately and come up with a solution like right now. Women take their time to come up with the best solutions. We generally come up with probably better solutions because we don't make them so quickly.
Yeah.
Sorry, men. No,
Sometimes that could definitely happen.
sometimes that can happen.
That's
But
true.
it's
So true.
men. If men understood that women just need to gather their research and gather their information, and they're going to do a phenomenal job in doing that, because that's who we are. It's why when you look at women in colleges and studious, we top of our class because that's who we are.
Hmm.
We study, we do this. We don't spur of the moment. So if men just had the patience and let women's greatness come out, they would be better, we would be better, and the company would be better. Bottom line, we'd
Yeah.
all be more productive because
Mhm.
we'd be working together as a real team that allows the greatness to come out on every single person on the team, whether they be male or women. So it's part of that is just understanding. So if I'm in a meeting and a man would come to me and be like, come on, like, let's get with the program. It's a being able to be, not let that trigger me to be like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, or I can't raise my hand. They're going to make fun of me. And I realize that that's just not truth. That's not real. Get through that so
Mhm.
that then you can raise your hand
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
participate.
Well, and I'm sure that happens a lot, right? Especially if you're a woman and all you do is you look around you and it's all men. And I was kind of brought up a little bit maybe like you, where my parents didn't teach me, oh, you're a woman, so you have to do this, or a man.
Hmm.
It was just like, go do your thing. Like, who
Right.
cares? Who cares if you're the only woman in the room or the only whatever in the room? It doesn't matter. Just go do your thing. And that's how I was brought up. So I was never brought up to look around and say, oh my gosh, now what? Because
Right.
we're all men. But there are women out there who have that in their head and have gone through the career like that. What would you say to a woman who is in that male industry and says, oh gosh, I want to raise my hand. I kind of do. And I know that I really should. Like you said, they tell themselves lies, but they probably still play small, right?
Mm-hmm.
They still feel, I don't want to stand too much in my power, because if I do, I'm seen as a you know what. And if I don't, I'm seen as weak. What would you say to women out there that are like, I know I've got more in me, but, and I know I'm playing small, but what do I do?
Yeah, what they need to do is really to figure out what's their own inner glass ceiling that they are creating for themselves.
Mhm.
Because that's what we're doing. We are creating the glass ceiling. And if they realize that when they're doing that, they
Mm.
put the glass ceiling over their own self. And they can't blame it on the men, and they can't blame it on the culture. We have to take that responsibility and start to recognize that we're creating this own glass ceiling. So we need to figure out and learn and spend the time, whether it be through coaching, whether through big programs. What is that? What's getting in my way? What's holding me back? What is that block? Is
Mhm.
it that I'm not good enough? I'm not smart enough? I'm too much? We all have women, actually, there's been known there's like 21 different barriers that women have. Men have different barriers, they have their own, but
Mhm.
that's related to us. And one of the most common ones is that I'm enough barrier, whether it be smart enough, young enough, old enough, smart, good enough, whatever that shows up. So we need to start looking at it, get curious and be like, why am I being this way? Why am I afraid to answer, afraid to stand up? Like, what is that about that? Instead of making it a we're wrong, or it's about me. Because this is what the difference what men do and women do. Women, we shame ourselves and we blame ourselves, and we blame, if there's a failure, if there's a mistake, we
Mhm.
blame it on us. We look internally like, I did something wrong. Men look at the situation. They don't blame themselves,
Hmm.
because they're always like, no, I can do this. I could do anything. So it's not
Mhm.
me. It was this, and this.
Right.
So they will react differently because they're looking at outside sources as to why that mistake happened or why that failure happened. Women internalize it, and we make it about us. And because we make it about us, that just opens the door for us to be fearful and play small. And so when we start to just be aware of this and start to recognize it,
Right.
we can start making those changes. So as much as women, we don't think it's personal development from that standpoint. It is. There's an inner transformation, and we need to get through this barrier. Until we don't get through this barrier of what's holding us back, we can't be fully self-actualized to our highest and greatest potential.
That's
There's
true.
just no way around it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to start from the inside. And that's the big thing that I say here on the show all the time. You have to create yourself as a leader from the inside out. So what you're
Right.
saying is, it starts inside. And that's a great point, because there's so many times where people want to play the blame game, right? The guy is like, well, I have a female leader. She doesn't want to promote me because I'm not a female. Or I have a guy leader. He doesn't want to promote me because and it really does. It starts with you. And no matter what that other person is doing or saying or any of that, it still falls with you. You always have a choice to make those changes. So that's very, very powerful. And I want to kind of go into a little bit of when you're talking about women who have issues of stepping up, stepping into their own power. Do you feel that, and this could be men or women now, we could always, we could switch it back. You're really, really good at just going out there and putting yourself out there. And now I'm kind of saying for everybody, right? This is men and women. How do you get over, oh, I don't want to put myself out there, I don't want to self promote? Because we're talking about leaders here, we're talking about aspiring leaders that want to step up, that want to promote themselves, but maybe they don't want to brag, but they don't know how, or, maybe they don't have the confidence. Like, what would you say to those people who are just like, I kind of want to go for that promotion, but I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Like, what do you got for them?
Again, they're going in their own head. They're not touching with their why. They're not touching into their heart. They're not allowing their brain to really help them show up powerfully. Because here's the thing with the brain. If you're going to stay in that fear mode, you're not allowing your brain to shift into the prefrontal cortex, which is your third eye. But so it's the scientist, it's not woo, it is science.
Yeah.
But when you're in your prefrontal cortex, when you're in that trust, this is why doing business with people who you know, like, and trust, when you're in that trust mode, your brain opens up your creativity, it opens up your wisdom, it opens up your insights, it opens up your breakthroughs, it opens up all this. So it makes what's invisible become visible. So if you stay in that fear mode, you are shutting down, you're disconnecting from your body, you're shutting down your creativity in your brain, your insights in your brain, your awareness. So you're shutting off your wisdom. You can't get the answers from that place. You have to allow yourself to trust. And you have to trust that who you are and what you stand for and everything else has meaning, has power, and is important, and is a voice that needs to be heard. And until you don't, you're shutting off. It's like trying to operate with like 25% of your ability.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you go forward if you're only allowing your brain and your body to operate at 25% instead of 100%? One of the things, if you want to open up trust and being in a conversation, with somebody, is to get into the question of start asking questions that you don't have answers to. Instead of listening and thinking that the other person has got this perception and this other person is, and you're thinking of like what you need to say next and you're thinking of what this other person is saying, listen just to connect. Connect with the person. Connect so that with the idea that you want them to know who you are and you want to know who they are. Don't bring any assumptions. Take your agendas out of the equation. Take your addicted to being right out of the equation. So as a woman, we want to be addicted to being right. Just abolish all of that and just come forward with no judgment, no criticism, because like that's why I did well in the 70s, because all the women back then were being critical and judging and complaining, and we needed it in that era because we had to get our voices heard somehow. But that's not what we need today.
Yeah.
Today we're past that. So today it's about showing up with our superpowers, like our intuition, our compassion. That's all leadership traits that are beautiful. As women, that's who we naturally are. So if we're going to shut that down, we're not going to be able to really shine as leaders.
Right.
So does
Yeah.
that answer your question? I know
Yeah.
I
Oh,
might have
yeah,
gone
for
off on a
sure.
tangent, but
No, that's good. That's good. Well, I know that I'm talking to the bold woman here, the gutsy woman. So let's get all the good stuff out of you,
get all the
right?
gutsiness out.
Yeah, like
It's
just let it all out, because there's somebody
yeah.
out there that is worried about speaking up or asking for the promotion, or in a woman being in a man's world, or reverse of a man being surrounded by women and be like, I don't know what to do, those kind of things. And I'm glad that you brought up leadership again. Now let's pretend that we're talking to the men right now, and you have a man who's in a leadership position and has a lot of women on his team. What type of advice would you give that man? Because like you just said, there's a lot of women out there that not standing in their powers, they're not self-promotion, getting themselves out there. Is there things that a man can do if he's got a largely woman team and men on the team? There's obviously some men in there, just bringing that together and making that cohesive for both genders. Is there something that you've seen in the past, or some advice that you would give to that male leader?
The number one thing that comes to my mind is that he needs to allow himself to see the greatness in everybody. whether it be a man or a woman. Everybody really wants to be respected, wants to be
Yeah.
seen, but a woman even more so. That's what we pay attention to. And I've seen, there was recently a CEO of a very large company, he wrote an article of an awareness he had because his number one top producer female left the company.
Oh.
And when he confronted her as to why she was leaving, he was like, "You're my number one," and she was like, "Oh, I never knew that. How come you never told me?"
Oh.
I was like, so she was totally being like, I'm on her mind, I'm doing all this, I'm producing so much, and I'm not even getting recognition. I'm not getting respected. I'm not getting my voice heard. I'm
Yeah.
not getting, maybe asked for what's your opinion on this? What do you think? So I would do the same thing. Ask questions you don't know and get them to be asked them like, okay, so help them to participate. So what would you do in this situation? Put them in the leadership position and ask them what they would do and not bring your agenda to the table. Look for the greatness in women instead of looking at women like, oh, she's a woman, so I have to be afraid what I'm going to say. She's going to start crying if I yell at her, or but you know what? Nobody wants to be yelled at anyway. And crying doesn't mean we're weak. Crying just means that we're very very close to the emotions of what you
Yeah.
said, and
Passionate.
it's passion.
Mhm.
What you're talking about is very important to us.
Yeah.
So I cry all the time, but yet I'm the original gutsy gal. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like
She had to
it
go through
doesn't.
all that to be gutsy.
So when I actually do, I have an exercise that I do with masculine and feminine, and I talk about what's the traditional traits. Because let's say, who really created what makes a masculine energy and feminine energy anyway? So I mean, then are there even truth behind them all? But so we know men are, the structure, the goal setting, all that. So we go to the women and I will go through them and say, well, what do you resonate with? And and then like, how does that feel in your body and all that? And they resonate. There's a lot that resonate with goal setting and different masculine
Yeah.
traits. And then I show the feminine ones, and what do you resonate with? And they like check off almost like all of them. And then when you say, well, what do you feel like in the strength, and from that, like none of them. And then they all of a sudden they just have this huge awareness how they're not allowing any of what they resonate with
Mhm.
feel powerful.
Right.
It all is like, no, that's weak, that's weak, that's weak, and it's really just a perception in their mind. And that's sometimes I would say it's a perception in the masculine world. So if men could have a different perception of us
Yeah.
and recognize that just because we're crying doesn't mean we can't produce an A+ project solution,
Hmm.
you know, where they need to see that, go beyond that and see the greatness and give us that time. Because like I said, we're solution. We're not the do constantly. A lot of us are very solution oriented problem solvers. So let them give them the time to solve the problem
Yeah.
instead of demanding that they solve the problem on their time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen that? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, well, for sure. And it's something that I do a lot of coaching around. And you'll see in other episodes on here is I've interviewed leaders and they say, look at the person's strengths and put, understand that, respect that, just like you said. And now here we are talking about, the men and the women and the masculine and the feminine energy. See what they have, what are they exuding, what's their superpower, and then make that happen, throw gas on that fire and watch that be awesome and be their number one. And that's what you want. So, and I'm sure that it goes the other direction as well, right? You probably have some men that might have feminine energy, and we won't go on that, but I mean, that's like a whole different story of
and
sometimes
and a
they'll
lot of men
gravitate toward
need
that.
to tap into their feminine
Yeah.
energy and recognize that that could be what's holding them back because their
Mhm.
own perception is that that's not something I could bring to the table in the corporate world. I personally believe that if all of us had a balance of masculine and feminine energy, we would be so much more productive. We would have unity power. The team culture would be phenomenal, and therefore the productivity would go through the roof. and
Yeah.
companies' bottom lines would increase dramatically.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. And hopefully
Yeah.
everybody out there take note. You heard it straight from Roe. This is the key. So yeah, that's awesome. Well, is there anything else that we're gonna wrap up here. Is there anything else that you want to let all those people know, those aspiring leaders, the emerging leaders, the brand new folks, or maybe just the people who want to boost their success to the next level? Is there anything else that you want to add?
When you're having conversations with your team, are you bringing out the best in them, or are you triggering them for them to go hide into their little shell?
Okay.
And really pay attention to it and see, and how could you do it differently? What different questions can you do? How could you get them more involved, and how, because it is a team. It is, if you're leading, if you're leading, and even if you're just leading as a solopreneur in negotiations and having conversations, it's like the way to take conversations to the next level of greatness to build his leadership is what I've been saying here this whole time, is about being open and letting go of the criticism, letting go of the judgment, letting go of being curious, share and discover. Get into a sharing and discovering attitude conversation with people so that you can be in this co-creative state instead of this leading question type of stuff. Because lots of times, check this, we're doing leading questions because we're asking questions to lead somebody down the path that we want them to go.
Yeah.
If we could let go of that at first and open up and build that trust and have this sharing and discovering and find out and get inquisitive, asking inquisitive questions, I think we would be much more better off in getting along with one another.
Couldn't agree more. I love that. It's great, great, great point. Well, I love how you shared your resiliency, your mental toughness. I mean, that is definitely your superpower. So we kind of got to know that a little bit here. Here's a little pop quiz. Why don't you give us a little fun fact or maybe an interesting story about Roe that maybe not everybody knows?
I stood out and I took a risk. So let's talk about taking risks,
Okay,
right? So
perfect.
women, about taking a risk and not worrying about people would say.
Okay.
When this is in the 80s, like 1986, when I just became a regional director, of a product, and I had to do this, hold a conference, a regional conference for all the stockbrokers, and these were the brokers were the producers in each branch. So I
Oh,
had about
sure.
20 or 30 branches that I oversaw,
Okay.
and within each branch, the broker oversaw my product, was my coordinator back there. So I was doing a conference for them, and I wanted to do a promotion. I wanted to do a promotion. I wanted to give out promotion. They love it, and I wanted to create a mug. So we had this one product. It was called Directions Unit Investment Trust.
Okay.
And the acronym was DUIT, which is pronounced do it.
Oh, okay.
Do it. So they were called do it. So we were selling do it. So basically what it was a portfolio of stocks that were considered undervalued that would make the highest return within 1 year. So
Hey.
you buy it, the portfolio stays still. 1 year later, it renews, and you make money, you lose money. But pretty much, this was in the 80s. I think from 83 to 87, I mean, the average was 20% return. A 1 year, 20% return. I'll take that today.
Yeah.
It's like,
Not too shabby.
so yeah, not too shabby. So the brokers would tell their clients, saying, "Look, we made all this kind of money. Let's invest it into the next one. Let's
Okay.
roll it over. Let's roll it over." So they would keep, every time it matured, they would roll it over into the next one.
Okay.
So I wrote on the mug, I wrote, "Brokers do it and roll over."
Oh, no. And you did this for a bunch of stockbrokers from all around.
This was
Okay,
E.F.
so
Hutton and Company. This
it
was
was,
like the Goldman Sachs of today.
oh my
Even
God.
E.F. Hutton and Company. Talk about respect.
And
My manager, the regional VP, was like, I didn't ask for permission. I didn't ask him ahead of time. I just did it.
You just did it.
And he was like, he told my husband, and goes like, she's going to go places. She's going to go places.
So they obviously liked the mug.
They loved the mug. They were laughing hysterical, but they couldn't believe that a woman did this. You know, sometimes you got to go with that intuition, got to go with the gut. You got to take the risk. Don't be afraid. I mean, obviously I wouldn't do anything on that today. You know, it's that fear of nothing to lose. If you could get yourself to the point where you fear you have nothing to lose, you'll be amazed at how powerful you show up. We never really have anything to lose, because if we lose, it just gives us answers of what to do next.
That's
Failure
true.
gives us answers. And without taking action, we're not going to be getting that. So we can't, not every action is going to be positive. There's going to be probably more failures than there are winners. So we need to be allowed yourself to take the risk, not be worried about, well, if I do this and this happens, and you go down that road, adapt that of fear of nothing to lose, and see how you show up when you like, I got nothing to lose. I got nothing to lose. Let's do this.
I like it. I will. I will remember that mug story. I now that it's out there, that's a great story about taking the risk. And at that point, I mean, it obviously put you on the map, right? And it was a subtle way of doing it, right? Like
Right.
that was an idea that you took and you ran with. It was a subtle way of doing it. It's not like you put trophies up and said, look how awesome I am, or anything like that. Back to
Right.
that self-promotion and not, feeling icky, doing all that. You just did it. You stood in your own
I was
power.
like, this is just too funny.
Yeah, you're just, I can't let this
too
go
funny.
by.
I can't let this slide.
Yeah.
And I was afraid that if I said it, they would deny me. And I was like, no, the brokers are going to love this. I don't care if management don't like it.
Right. Well,
Management loved it.
Who's really the customer here, right? So
yeah,
that made sense. Well, I'm glad that you made it here, Ro. And I hope everybody out there learned something. I don't care if you're a man or woman, whatever it is, something in between. I'm sure that you learned a lot today, because this really is a risk-taking kind of woman. I really highly admire just all the different things that she's done. She's unapologetic. She's like, yep, this is how I do it. This is how I roll. So if people want to learn more about you, Ro, maybe get in touch with you, learn a little bit about what you offer, give us some information. How do we get in touch with you?
Great. Thank you. And thank you so much for that. So this has been fun. And I haven't told that story in probably 10 years or so.
Oh, cool.
So this is great.
Now it's out for everybody.
So obviously, so the name of my company is Gutsy Gals Get More.
Okay.
And that's the best way they can find me. It's gutsygalsgetmore.com.
Okay.
They'll be able to find me. My social media handle, with the exception of Instagram, is Be a Gutsy Gal. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Be a Gutsy Gal. Instagram is gutsygal_leaders. So those are my social media handles. And anybody reaches out to me, I'd love to have a Gutsy Gal chat. And let's have that courageous conversation that we need to have to move forward, get out of your own way, and break through that.
Yeah.
Break through your own glass ceiling.
Yeah. Well, I hope a lot of you out there take advantage of that. Connect to her. She is super real. When she was talking about she was authentic before authentic was a thing. Well, she's right. She will tell you everything that you need to know if you want to break through that glass ceiling. Maybe you have that glass ceiling of your very own, like you heard. But yeah, get in touch with Rose. She's a great person. She'll help you out. And I'll make sure that all of that information that she just said is in the comments below. So look in the About section. You'll have all of her links, all the good stuff. So if you want to get a hold of her, it'll be right there for you. So, well, Ro, thanks for being here. I'm glad that you're excited. Glad you had fun.
Yes, thank you. You asked some dynamite questions in talking about the masculine and feminine leadership. Love this conversation. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it was a big help for you, and we will see you next time.
Don't you just feel empowered after that? No excuses, no obstacles, just go out and do it. And no matter what gender you are, hopefully you heard some key tips to take your team to a new unified level. And that's what it's really all about, right? balancing that feminine and that masculine energy to create one awesome team that achieves the vision. What tip will you put into action to empower yourself and/or your team to break free of insecurities and be bold? How will you use what you learned in your leadership approach? Let me know in the comments below, and if you liked what you heard today, give this video a thumbs up. If you loved what you saw today and you want more, you got it. Just hit the subscribe button and the bell icon below, and you'll be notified when a new adventure is posted every week. And if you know someone who would love these leadership tips, success strategies, and motivational stories, well, hit the share button below and share it with them. They may just thank you for it. Thanks for tuning in to Kristie TV, and keep being gutsy. Do you want to be a confident, next-level leader, but your job doesn't offer any solid training? Are you unsure of how or where to start? Then let's talk. Schedule a free leadership strategy session with me. If you're a driven professional and you're serious about taking your success to the next level, just click the link in the description below. We'll talk about your challenges and next steps you can take to be the leader you're meant to be. Let's move you forward now.